This is the 21st century angle of how to do things. What the world would look like if we all stopped running the business.
The business I would start tomorrow? Oh my God, I wasn't ready for this one.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and in self. Today, we have David Wolf from Media Capital Ventures joining us to discuss how they are building a 21st century portfolio of entertainment and media companies that create and deliver content to the world. They have developed over 200 audiobooks per year and are currently developing over 40 podcast series, as well as a plethora of other high-end media. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
Great to be with you, Kyle. Thanks so much.
You know, I've gone through your website and the level of content that you're developing, what you're representing for your clients is extraordinarily high end. And it's what's needed in the market today as we've gone through this volatile of people making slideshows from their phone to going down to highly professional content throughout TV. And then the UGC era coming in, which is a lot more, raw footage. But now everyone's starting to learn that they need to be professional. They want the top quality clients. They need to work with people like you. So can you give the listeners a breakdown of kind of how you built this business, where it really came from, and where you stem from to build something like this?
Sure, absolutely. So my background is in music production. So I grew up in Chicago and was a drummer actually, and then learned the art of composing music for radio, TV, and film. Learned that business while still living in Chicago. Moved to Dallas when I was married in 1985 and created Cry Wolf Productions, which was a studio with an actual physical studio and a composer. That's me writing music for radio, TV, commercials, film, children's programming. We worked on a lot of big brands you've heard of and a lot of little ones you've never heard of, but it was basically a full service audio and music production company. So this company that we're now building, Media Capital Ventures, and within that, the Audavita Studios as a subset of that company is really a natural extension of all I knew in production. We were always producing voiceovers. We were always working with filmmakers. We were always producing, the musical content, which is less what we're doing now. Of course, we're using source music in the assets that we produce, but it's not all about me writing a piece of music, which was the how I would characterize that first chapter of my professional life. What I really set out to do was create something that was scalable. So now we have, as of 6 years ago or so, we have this team at Audavita, a discrete team that produces podcasts. We have about between 30 and 50 at any given time at our current size. And then we do produce, as you mentioned, about 200 audiobooks a year. Audiobooks, they're all content, but the way they're packaged and distributed is just definitely different. The podcasts are recurring revenue, and there's episodics that are happening. And after the development process, it's really, it's kind of a rinse and repeat kind of an endeavor where we're producing, recording, editing, producing, distributing, and then that's the cycle. And we're monetizing those shows that have audiences that are large enough for them. On the audiobook side, we partner with hybrid publishers, traditional publishers, publishing service providers, and directly with authors to help them create audio versions of their books. So that's been an exploding market, even more than ebooks over the past, really since about 2015. And so we've been the beneficiary of the explosions on both sides of the audio market with hypermobile all coming in. But that tells you a little bit about how I got into the business. It's a natural extension of what I knew and loved during the earlier parts of my life.
I absolutely love that. And you're diving into a category, as you said, it's an exploding category. Audiobooks are blowing up. Audible itself is constantly growing at an amazing rate. And I think the way that consumers are just absorbing knowledge, you're fitting right into the mold of what people are looking for. They're looking for an audiobook they can listen to as they're driving, and they're looking for a podcast that they can engage with on either polling conversations or being able to engage with something deeper. But there's other companies that are in your space, and I'm curious, as you've gone through your longevity and you've worked through this process of especially the development of audiobooks and the development of the digital world, especially in the last 10 to 15 years here, you gotta have specific problems that as business owners we go after to solve, right? We really our biggest goal is to solve problems. So what is the biggest problem that you see in the market, especially when a client comes to you and they're looking to do an audiobook? What's the biggest problem that they normally have? Is it distribution? Is it the development of it? What's the main thing that you're trying to solve for them to ensure that they're not just producing this asset, but they're producing an asset that's going to help them grow their overall revenue in their business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you've touched on a few of the points folded into the question. So largely we are positioned as a what I call a high touch, white glove, premium position in the market. We're not the DIY. Set it and forget it. We'll just show you it's a platform. You click and buy, and then you're on your own. We're very hands on with our clients. And I think really related to that is our clients tend to be less technical. So what we do is we strip away all the technology. Maybe they skew a little older, you might say that, and we allow them to just show up and either narrate their book, or if it's a fiction work, often we're doing casting to find the proper voice, from a professional voiceover standpoint. The recording of the author reading their own has been wildly successful. When I started this as a solopreneur, about say, call it 8 or 10 years ago, before Audavita was formed, I think I was one of the first producers doing this, because the large traditional publishers really didn't like the idea of their authors, attempting to read the book. But as the democratization of content has occurred, and the democratization of media has occurred, I think, first of all, the audiences really want to hear and connect with the person that wrote the words on the page. And so they are their voice. They're the voice of their brand. I sometimes call that the voice brand. They're the connectivity to market. They're going to mobilize their audience to buy the other versions of the book, a print or an ebook, or to do business with them, which really for the self narrated nonfiction author is often the case. They're not staring at unit sales. They're writing a book and they're generating content in order to further the objectives to grow their own business. And you touched on that. And I know that's integrated with the way you think about the market as well. So it's been fascinating. We do fiction as well, but the nonfiction thing has really been sweet for us. Problems. So technology is one that we strip away. Let's face it, the economics of producing audiobooks is not, it's challenging for a lot of authors, particularly in the fiction space, because the equation is always, like any reasonable person would ask, how am I going to make my money back and then some on this project? So for the fiction author, where they're actually writing the product and that's the end game, it's very challenging. And I think, I could speak to the fact that, the ecosystem for distribution is, it's not friendly for authors. It's structured around Amazon making 60% of the revenue. The 40% goes to the author, and that's if they do an exclusive deal. If they go non-exclusive, it's 25%. And so, those are not great economics for authors. They should be making 80, 90% of the work they produce. So that's a big challenge, the economics, and we're constantly trying to, I mean, that's a problem. That's a big problem. I'd love to help solve in the market. We're too small of a company to really take that on, but it's something that's on my mind constantly as we talk to authors that are looking to work with us. Now enter AI. So AI enables us to create more favorable economics, a lower barrier to entry for the author that wants to produce an audiobook. And so that's been very helpful. There are some headwinds around AI. And some of them are obvious and others not so obvious. But the main distributors of audiobooks are reticent to open the floodgates of AI because of probably the varying qualities that are out there in terms of the quality of the voice gen technology. Not everybody's is as good as everybody else's. And also they're probably developing their own solutions, which could disintermediate, that is, companies like ours in the future. So we may be facing some challenges down the road, and we're acutely aware of these things. But at the moment, we're high touch. We're working with people, and so we put them at ease with the process because there's a lot to learn about how to get it done, to spec, and how to get it out into the market. It's complicated, and if you're running a business or you're doing other things or writing more books, it's just hard to take all that out. So that's where we solve. That's the problem we really solve for. Different on the podcast side, but we can get to that if you like.
Well, I mean, David, it's a great breakdown. You're just explaining that as you go through it, the granularity that comes into the development of this, the expertise that is needed, the level of understanding that needs to be to understand how to enter into market and use it successfully on the back end is a very difficult process to walk down while you're trying to write a book, which isn't an easy thing in the first place, right? Write a book or emphasize the success of your book. So
it's very hard. Yes, that's true.
So the simplicity of working with David here is really the value for business owners and entrepreneurs listening to this right now. If I know me personally, I'm in the process of writing a book as I speak. And when I get to that point, I'll be contacting David to support me because it's way over my head and I live in the digital world every single day. So if you have a book, if you developed a book and you don't know the steps, this is the individual you have to reach out to. Obviously, he's living this, he's absorbing this, he's doing this every single day. And you can tell by the speed of his understanding that there is so many factors that come into the success of this that you need a professional in your corner to make sure it's done correctly. David, you highlighted a little bit before some of the clientele that you're already working with. Can you outline who is the ideal person that walks through your front door? That when they come in, for a
So
fact that your system will.
yeah. Yeah, no. So remembering that we are two businesses, we're a podcast team and an audiobook team. And I want to mention that it's not all about me. Yeah, thank you for your kudos. I've been very, very blessed with creating a team of professionals that do all the things we do a lot better than I did when I was working by myself, 10 years ago. So we have a fabulous team on both sides of the business, audiobook production and audio and podcast production. So ideal clients, for us, most of our work is branded in nature, and these are business owners or organizations or enterprise level clients that are looking to produce content to further the agenda to grow their own business, whether it's an audiobook or a podcast. It's all content at the end of the day. And so that's really our ideal avatar. There are outliers. We do have some fiction folks that we work with. We occasionally do more elaborate audiobooks that require some music and sound design, and they're more narrative and storytelling in nature. And, it's fiction or it's fantasy or it's sci-fi or something like that. But the core business was really built on this idea that it's branded content, audiobooks or podcasts. And so that I would say, I don't know if that's answering your question in full, but that's how I would characterize our client. The other thing about our clients is that, and this is a constant challenge, is that our clients, the best fit for us are those that understand it costs money to do this right and want to work with a really high quality team. Again, we're not a click and buy kind of operation. We're not a gold, silver, bronze. There's a lot of customization in what we do, which is challenging to scale, as those out in the entrepreneurial world will understand. But we chose that route. We chose to just grow to a certain size so that we can continue to develop, rather to deliver this kind of, higher quality attention to everybody we work with. So I hope that answers your question in
For
part
sure.
or full. Yeah.
No, but really, right now we're working with a lot of nonfiction, very successful, but also I've done huge projects and projects outside of nonfiction that are bringing in audio, it's bringing in sound and everything else.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so putting you in a position where anybody that's really looking to develop an audiobook is a good fit for you. But again, David currently is offering a very white gloved, high touch, very, very high end service around this audiobook. Before the call started, David, you started telling me that you might have some potential other offers for the business in the future. Do you want to highlight those a little bit?
So the other authors, meaning,
You're talking about a lower cost offer that might be more suitable so that won't be as white glove.
so we do have a campaign that we're running right now, and what we just determined we wanted to do is create for a book author. It's a book launch package of 6 podcast episodes. So we created a flat rate price to just do that, rather than a whole customized, it's going to go on forever and I don't know what I'm getting into sort of scenario. For the author or even for the podcaster in any vertical, we're currently marketing it to health and wellness and financial professionals. But truthfully, what we wanted to do is narrow the target and say to that target, we can help you with just 6 podcasts, a limited series at a flat rate that's more affordable from a certain standpoint, and just help you leg into this podcast journey to see how it feels for you, and to see if you like it and to see if it's effective. You may just do 6 and that's it. Or you may decide, you know what? I really like this. I'm getting results. I'm inviting people onto my show I want to do business with, engage. In this case of podcasts, let's keep going. And then we'll, sort of up level you to a longer term engagement. On the audiobook side, this is really where the AI comes in, where we're lowering the barrier to entry. I think I touched on this a moment ago, by using AI voice generation. So what we do there is we clone the author's voice in about a half-hour recording session, and then we use that voice for all the audio production for their book. So what that does is it lowers the cost, maybe not quite in half, but very close to in half for the whole project, which lowers the barrier to entry, makes it easier for the author to earn money on their audiobook or get a return on their investment, let's say. And it's more affordable, just in pure, dollars and cents. So I think that's what you're alluding to when you asked me the question. That may be. I'm not sure.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, no, you mentioned a little bit before the calls, listeners. So just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that because it's a huge grab. I know a lot of people are concerned about walking into this. How much work do I have to do? How much time do I need to
Right,
allocate for this? What is the
right.
process and procedure? And you know, when David first brought that up, I mean, I thought it was an instant walk in that easily could bring anybody into the world of. Let's be honest here, guys. This is the 21st century. How many people are still listening to the regular radio, and how many people are actually putting on a podcast when they sit in their car? Right? It's a lot more podcasters today than it is the radio listeners. And especially as the demographics of the ages changes as we get to the end of the baby boomers age and the younger
Right.
consumers growing up, it's only going to be more into podcasts and less into radio. So it
That's a fascinating transition that we're witnessing.
or
And there are, there's sort of this merging of linear and nonlinear, and it's all very interesting. It's for another conversation on another day, but it's fascinating. We're in the middle of a complete revolution, obviously. Then you add AI into that mix. It's a very exciting time to be around.
yes, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I definitely want to have some future questions for you in a little bit, but I have a past question for you first. To build
Sure.
something like this and to develop your mindset to a
Yeah.
position where you were this successful and you created again this plethora of businesses that are there to help companies and this very honed in service to be successful. You have to go through some trials and tribulations through that process and go through some difficulties. Is there a single failure or major challenge that you had in your point of your business that you would like to highlight that may have shaped the way that you do business today or adapted certain things?
Well, it does, and it doesn't pertain to the business that we're currently talking about today. Um, uh, Let me point to a couple of places. So, in my music production business, and I touched on this earlier, I I really just it was all about me writing a piece of music, and so the business was entirely dependent on me doing that. And so it's much like a doctor or a dentist or any practitioner. You could argue it's not really a business; it's a practice. And so um, I don't know that that was a challenge because it was a successful run in the music business, and we're in that business at that time doing music for advertising and radio and TV, and we were paid a premium for creative, probably on a proportional basis more than we are now. Than creative people are paid now, just because there's so many people doing it. All the costs have gone down, supply and demand at work, market forces, et cetera. But during the period I was doing it in the late '80s and into the '90s, we were paid a premium, so it did work as a solopreneur. But what I really set out to do was create a scalable business. And so I know that I know that I did one business turnaround that had nothing to do with media, and this would maybe be more instructive than the success stories. Is the failure may be strong, but it was very challenging. It was a family business that we turned around. It was had gone into bankruptcy under the prior ownership. I bought the assets out of bankruptcy. It was in the commercial bakery industry, so it wasn't an industry I really knew or was built to do, but I wanted to apply what I understood about business and marketing that I'd learned from building the music business and partner with my members of my family and redeploy this brand that had gone south or sideways. And so we ran that company. I was the CEO for about 8 years. Family businesses in and of itself are tough to do. So, but I think more than anything, I underestimated the risk exposure that and then the amount of capital that was required to do the startup. I came in pretty thin from a capitalization standpoint, and that made it challenging for me. So I guess the message there is really, really, really understand the risk, and understand that you need fuel for the fire in order to grow. Right now we're in a capital raise. You introduced me as the founder of MCV Media Capital Ventures. I formed about a year ago a holding company to raise capital to continue to grow Audavita Studios, the company we're talking about with audiobooks and podcasts, but also begin to acquire and grow other companies that are, coming up for sale as the transfer of wealth happens from baby boomers and so forth. And by the way, I am a baby boomer, so I'm an outlier, but there's a tremendous transfer of wealth happening. That's an interesting inflection for me. And so we're looking to build a portfolio within this holding company of related marketing and publishing and other podcast production and possibly other audiobook production and bolt them together and call it a consolidation strategy. So we've been trying that on precise. We've been running it by investors for the past year. We haven't really landed the right partners quite yet, but it's something I'm working on. It's a challenge.
Yep.
That's the challenge word.
It's another challenge. But and listeners, if entrepreneurs and business owners listening to this right now, I bet you can relate. We've all thought about starting a business with a family member, and we've all underestimated the risk of walking into any
Right.
business. So completely agree with you, David. It's something that I don't think a lot of people are ready for. Not just the risk financially, but the risk mentally. It's a process, man. You get beat up, and you have to have a level of tenacity to be able to sit in the seat that you're at today. So let's now move into the future where video production and the development of audiobooks, the development of these podcasts. We believe that this is the 21st century angle of how to do things, but we're always adapting. Marketing's always changing, and the way consumers are absorbing things are always adjusting. I'm always curious at how the VR AR world will ever get implemented, if it does. If it does.
Right.
So my question to you,
Right.
David, when you look at the future of your industry, where do you see it going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, of course, that's a crystal ball question. Here's what I will say. I sound like a politician. Here's what I will say. I will say that um, our company was built to connect your voice to the world. That's our tagline. That's our mantra. That's at the core. That's our source code. So as long as we hold on and keep that sacred, the way we do it and understanding that the way we're doing what we're doing is likely to change many, many times over the course of 5, 3, 5, 7. It's happening faster and faster. So exponentially. Fortunately, I've got an amazing team that's very flexible. They're an average of about 10 to 15 years younger than I am. So they have a view that's uniquely different than mine and probably are more able to adapt perhaps than I am, although I'm probably pretty good for my age. But I think that certainly AI is going to play into this. We're already more than nibbling at the edges of AI. We're producing podcasts with AI. We're doing audiobooks with AI. We're generating ancillary assets like clips. We were talking earlier of the clips and the show notes and all the things that go with podcasts. I think that AI is coming into and this, the marketing and the ability to target market with paid advertising. Fascinating. The efficiency of that is just so interesting and so fascinating. And we see it as an opportunity and a challenge. And we just had our offsite summit for this month yesterday. And more and more of the conversation is about how we're going to be using these new technologies and how it might optimize our internal operations, lower the cost for our clients, enable us to take on more capacity, lower our cost structure, maybe lower the price model. I'm not sure, maybe. And we see ourselves maybe evolving into something more along the lines of where AI ambassadors that specialize in podcast and audiobook production, as opposed to the old school, we're sitting at our digital audio workstations or video workstations and manually editing linear footage, so to speak. So, all of these things are exciting and scary, and it's all good.
I love your excitement for your animation behind the idea. And it means that you are, well, I would say embodying the idea of Kaizen, embodying the idea of for the listeners out there that haven't heard this before, Kaizen is a Japanese business philosophy that means 1%
Yeah.
improvement every single day in both business and in self. And you can hear from David here that he's not only embodying Kaizen and the idea of evolving his business and bringing AI, but also evolving the ideology of his clients and where they sit in the positioning of leveraging these tools to find success. So David, I have to ask, right? Being as you said, baby boomer, your words, not mine, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
as
Totally.
baby
Just
boomer,
real.
right? And you've been through this timeline of
Yeah.
development and staying on top of all these new things and moving into a world where your business today is very revolutionary. How do you find your Kaizen? What do you do to constantly find the ability to improve yourself, to absorb new knowledge, to evolve who you are and who your business is day in and day out?
Well, I love that. We all want to really strive to be a better version of ourselves with incremental 1% every day. I love that ideology, and if that's what it is, I think it is. And so what I do is I have some routines that are a part of my life. I practice transcendental meditation. So I do 2 20-minute or so sessions daily to quiet the mind. And by quieting the mind, I'm allowing much more the ability to observe the stress in the world around me without it having, going internal on it or taking it in. That clarity is really helping me. In fact, when I started meditating, which is about the time I formed Audivita, a lot of things happened very serendipitously and spontaneously, like the formation of the team I mentioned earlier in this conversation. I don't know how that happened. I'm pinching myself without doing extensive interviews. I just, maybe I put one ad out on LinkedIn, and there was Mark, our director of audiobook production, introduced spontaneously to Sean, who now runs our podcast division. And so Erica as well, who's now our CEO of Audavita, started out as my VA. I mean, it was just this spontaneous development of a team that works really well together. We are huge on culture, and we celebrate that every day. So we're, as a group, we're looking to improve and constantly chipping away, if you, I don't like that metaphor, but growing is probably a better one. At being better versions of our collective self. And then for me personally, I try to take care of myself in terms of exercise, oxygenation, and the meditation has been profoundly transformative. So
David, I
those
mean,
are some things.
if you're a listener right now, okay, I cannot tell you how much either a yoga session or meditation will help your business. And this is a stressful life that we live. It is
Oh,
very
man.
difficult. What we do is not easy. And there's a reason that over 80% of business owners will fail even in the first 3 years, right? It's because the difficulty is not because business is bad. Sometimes that's the reason, but a lot of times it's the stress. It's the amount that we have to deal with day in and day out. And what David just said, that piece of advice, resonate with that. Sit with that. Even if you're the guy running a construction business, you're 250 pounds, and you're drinking a beer right now, and you're thinking, I'll never meditate, I can promise you would change your life. And David is a
You're exactly right. Kyle, I'll tell you what, the ability to just observe um, external, whether it's stress or information, and not take it in and be able to just think about, in a reasonable way and observe, be the observer of what's going on, has been profoundly useful. And you've touched on all of it just there. It just enables you not to get too attached. It made it easier to delegate and let go. Because I'm in a place where, I'm in my mid 60s. I'm kind of like I'm in a place where I'm pulling back a little bit from the operational side. So that required a lot of letting go for me and a lot of trust in everybody around me. So fortunately, I've got really, really great people around me, but not all entrepreneurs, many of us have trouble letting go of controlling things. And I've found somehow that I've been able to condition myself to not be holding on that way. And I think that's a block for a lot of entrepreneurs with businesses our size, in that 1 million, 2 million range.
I couldn't agree more. I can guarantee that listeners right now are feeling the same thing. How many people have hesitated delegation, has hesitated hiring, has hesitated off putting the jobs that they're currently doing as the CEO of the company because they believe it couldn't be done better. They believe an internal ideology that your culture of your team might come from the fact that you give them the freedom to be a team, that you give them the
Bingo.
to have a culture, right? So
You've got a lot of insight. That's beautiful.
yeah, super,
Very
super.
well said.
I have one more bonus question for you. And I'm
Sure.
very curious. Have you heard of the book or read the book Atlas Shrugs?
No, I haven't. Atlas, and I do a lot of reading and listening.
Atlas
Atlas.
Shrugs is an awesome book for the listeners out there. It's an extensive book, very, very big. But Atlas Shrugs is an older book. I believe it was written in the 60s. And the base ideology of the book for the listeners out there and for you, David, was that us as business owners, you, me, the business owners listening to this right now, we put the world on our shoulders and move the world forward every single day. From the development of everything from a small business that cleans a lawn to Apple, who changed the world, every business decides to put the stress and the efforts to change the world on our shoulders every single day. If you're not an entrepreneur listening to this right now, I can guarantee you that you're not making that much movement in the world. But if you start a business and you build an operations, you'll start changing the world. Well, my question to you, David, the book Atlas Shrugs talks about what happens if all of us business owners, you, me, the restaurant owner down the road, we just shrug it off. We just say we're done. We're done running our business. We collect our
Wow.
cash and we walk away, right? What the world would look like if we all stopped running the business. Now, the whole book is extensive. It goes through all these different ideologies and
Wow.
scenarios.
Sounds
My
cool.
question to you, David, is if that happened today, if you dropped your business, I dropped mine, everybody dropped their business, but the infrastructure was still there. Restaurants were still there. All of it was still there.
Sure.
What would be the first business that you would start tomorrow?
The business I would start tomorrow. Oh, is that interesting? Oh my God, I wasn't ready for this one. So, in other words, I exit everything I've created in the media, and what would I do next?
What would you do next with unlimited opportunities? There's no competition. There's nothing out there. It's just an open world, but you have all the chances in the world to start what you would love.
Well, I will say this. I don't know specifically what the the value creation would involve, but the word impact just jumped into my mind. And that's one of the side effects that I didn't see coming. It used to be I was creative and I was writing music and I was producing things. But what I realized, when you grow a business of a certain nature with the right people, you're having an impact on your internal customer, which are your employees, your W-2. Then you've got your freelancers. We've got about 30 or 40 freelancers that we impact. Some of them are living largely supported by the value we create for our clients and then charge them. And there's this economic impact that we're having, and a social economic impact on their families. We're helping to support families. So that I have found most gratifying. So part of me feels like whatever the next thing would be, I would want it to have impact. And there are areas of humanity that clearly need impact. So if I had unlimited resources, capital, time, so to speak, I would want to create something of high impact. And that's somewhat nebulous, but I'll have to get back to you on the specifics.
No, I love that. And for the listeners out there, what that means is that if you work with David, his whole goal, even if he dropped everything and wanted to start a new business, he wants to make an impact for you as a client. He wants to make an impact for your business. And that's what he's doing with his podcast and his audiobooks. David Wolf, thank you so much for your time. Again, David Wolf from Media Capital Ventures and Audvita Studios. I say that correctly? Audvita Studios?
Audvita, yeah, Audvita.
All the information for David's going to be found below in the description. David, how can somebody contact you if they want to start working with you?
Oh, the best way is through the website. There's a contact us page on several of the pages that'll connect you with me and my team. The website, one and the same of our name, audivita.com, like the automobile Audi, AUDI, V as in Victor, VITA.com, audivita.com. And as you said, it'll be in the show notes. Yeah.
It'll be in the show notes and be in the description below. Thank you guys for listening. If you finish this episode, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the page. David, thank you again for your time, and continue to crush it out there.
Good to be with you, Kyle. Thanks so much.